Basic, let me set this up. And by the way, Rand Paul is killing it. I'll tell you something else. This is classic, too. You know these two guys, Heilemann and Mark Halperin, that we talk about a lot here? They've got this internet show at Bloomberg. And they're classic. They are Halperin maybe a little bit more informed about us than your average drive-by media person, but it doesn't do him much good. These are the two guys that write campaign books. They learn all the stuff that would kill a Democrat candidate, and they hold it for after the election for their book. It's those two guys. Halperin used to be at ABC, political director, whatever. Anyway, they were blown away. They could not believe it. They were stunned. They were shocked that Ted Cruz was able to raise $31 million in a week. They were just blown away. They think Ted Cruz is from Mars. They don't think Ted Cruz could raise $10 in a month. They have bought into this notion he's nothing more than Sarah Palin, male version. They really do believe this cockamamie crap about conservatives and Republicans. They're the most cocooned people. And Ted Cruz is out there for anybody and anybody, just like we are here, to learn about. You don't have to have a secret code, a PIN number, or a password to learn about Ted Cruz. Likewise, you don't need one to listen to this program. Anyway, Cruz raises $31 million, and they can't believe it. And then Heilemann happened to run into him one place and couldn't believe how nice he is. It's just, these are the people who tell us that they're the educated, they're the open-minded, they're the tolerant ones, they're the understanding. They live in such a closed-off world, it's stunning. Anyway, Ted Cruz raising 31, that's a game changer. Now, all of a sudden, in their world, Ted Cruz is somebody to be reckoned with. Ted Cruz, somebody to all of a sudden take serious. $31 million in a week? How in the hell? Who are these people? Where does he get that kind of money? They're totally in a state of disbelief. In the meantime, Mrs. Clinton, who hasn't even announced her campaign, is imploding. There's this guy at the Politico named Glenn Thrush, and he's written a piece. In fact, there are two of them. Well, it's actually his, and one plays off of his. Here's the headline reporting Glenn Thrush's tweet on Drudge and the Daily Caller. Well, the tweet is, Hillary's collapsing completely, shouldn't even bother to enter the race. He's got an article of Politico about this. Hillary is collapsing completely, shouldn't even bother to enter the race. Now, if you go to the Drudge webpage and the Daily Caller, here are the headlines. The Drudge headline is, Campaign Collapsing Completely. Liberal Politico reporter, Clinton campaign collapsing completely. But that's not what Thrush said. He may have meant that. But Thrush's tweet is, Hillary, '(S), Hillary's, i.e. Hillary is collapsing completely. Shouldn't even bother to enter the race. Which, from the outside, that appears to be true. And then if you go to, Rand Paul is skunking her in Iowa. And that is big news today. Well, it's big news to the drive-bys. It's big news to the drive-bys that anybody's beating Hillary anywhere. I'm not kidding. They really live in this walled-off fortress where whatever they write, whatever they broadcast, whatever they say must be the truth. And what they think and say about Hillary is fait accompli. Nomination already wrapped up. Election, mere formality. Anything comes along that causes them to, makes that look untrue, they are unable to process it. Rand Paul is just, well, all of these guys. Scott Walker, I don't know if he took my advice or not, but he's hammering Hillary now. That was one of the biggest pieces of advice I gave these guys collectively earlier this week. I said 13, 14, 15, whatever, 16 Republican candidates. Instead of going after each other and tearing each other apart and destroying each other even before the debates began, why don't you focus on Hillary? Focus on them. Focus on the presumptive nominee. Can you imagine what damage could be done if every Republican candidate, potential nominee, focused on Obama and Hillary, because they are the real opposition. Instead of trying to tear each other apart, with lack of loyalty or lack of fealty to single-issue things. Go after those guys. Can you imagine what a year and a half of hammering Hillary would do? We don't need to drive-by media for this. They are the end, and Hillary's the presumptive nominee. You don't have to wait for the general to go after her. Democrats, everybody around, telling us that she's it. Oh, speaking of that, Elizabeth Warren was somewhere on TV. Did not endorse Hillary. Well, she expressed some reservations about Hillary out there, and that caused a lot of wet dreams out there in Progressiveville. Because they really would prefer her in the lunatic fringe. And then from the Quinnipiac University polling unit, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's lead is wilting against leading Republican presidential candidates in 3 critical swing states, Colorado, Iowa, and Virginia. And she finds herself in a close race with U.S. Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky in every state, according to a Quinnipiac University swing state poll. That was released today, I believe. Yep. In head-to-head matchups, every Republican candidate effectively ties her in Colorado. And almost all Republicans effectively tie her in Iowa. Secretary Clinton has lost ground in almost every matchup in Colorado and Iowa since a February 18th swing state poll by the independent Quinnipiac University. One bright spot for Clinton is Virginia, where she leads all Republicans 47-40 over Bush, compared to 42% tie in February. And Jim Garrity writes about this at his Morning Jolt blog at National Review Online, basically adding Gallup to it. Hillary Clinton's favorable rating from the American public currently stands at 48%, which is similar to her 50% reading last month, but it's down from 55% last summer, from 59% a year ago. She's held off making presidential announcements because she's doing paid speeches because, Clintons were broke. They left the White House so destitute they had to steal furniture from the residents. That's how broke they were. And so they've been out there really struggling to get even, to get out of bankruptcy, whatever the heck they claimed they were in. So she had to put off her presidential announcement till after all of her paid speeches had been given, and those wrapped up in March, and that's why everybody thinks that she's on the verge of announcing. But she keeps losing. And what's striking about this, it's usually the other way around. Mrs. Clinton's poll numbers, you could look this up, Mrs. Clinton's approval numbers, her poll numbers overall, generally rise the more silent and invisible she is. When she speaks, when she shows up, starts talking, her numbers go down. That's record. That's not me opining. That's actually the case. But now, she's not out there doing anything. Grim and Gray was the last shot we had at her. Grim and Gray was the last shot she had at us. And it's not going well. She's invisible. She's not saying anything. She's making all these hires. She hired some 33-year-old Google babe to run her campaign. Wait till you hear the job title for this, too. I have to take a quick break. And I want you to hear these guys, Heilemann and Halpern, react to Ted Cruz raising $31 million. They just can't believe it. So sit tight. We'll be right back. Okay, last night, Bloomberg's, with all due respect, co-host John Heilemann, Mark Halpern, talking about the 2016 presidential race, and they can't believe Ted Cruz.
A handful of pro-Cruz super PACs that were formed just this week are expected to have $31 million in the bank by Friday. This sounds like a bit of a game changer to me. Do you think it is? And if so, just how big a game changer is it?
It's a huge game changer. It gets people who weren't taking Ted Cruz's candidacy seriously to focus on him. It's not that long ago that $31 million would have been a budget for an entire presidential campaign. It shows that he can play the super PAC game, and he might end up being, after Jeb Bush, the best funded Republican before New Year's Eve, and that's a big deal.
John Harwood, Wall Street Journal, is next. Is he Wall Street? No. CNBC. He's been at the Journal. Hell, these guys rotate the revolving. I don't know where he is now, but they're talking about this. Harwood cannot believe this.
With the $31 million in super PAC commitments that Ted Cruz has amassed in recent days, he is going to be heard in this race, and we're going to have to see how much of a factor he is. I think Jeb Bush is the favorite to win the nomination. Scott Walker is probably his chief competitor, but somebody else is going to emerge as a third wheel in the race. From the Cruz and Paul, Ben Carson wing, I would expect one of those to be a serious player, and I would think that Cruz may have the best chance of that group to be the player, the one who is the rival to Jeb Bush. And Scott Walker.
Joe Kernan, CNBC, said, you spent some time, asking Harwood, you spent some time with Ted Cruz. This wasn't your first time. What are your impressions of the guy?
I found Ted Cruz to be more charming in person than I expected.
That's what I'm talking about.
This is where I think he has an advantage over Paul. He is more fluid, better at connecting one-on-one. That's going to be a challenge for Paul as he's on the trail, is establishing a personal connection. Ted Cruz is a little better at it.
Yeah, besides, Rand Paul, he beats up women now, see? He beats up female journalists. Yeah. Gender wars have begun. That's not me saying it. If you're just tuning in, you missed the whole theme of the program. I'm not saying that about Rand Paul. The media set that meme up. But what gets me about this is Ted Cruz. I've met Ted Cruz a number of times, but I don't need to have met him to know that he's a guy. He's a good guy. He's a decent guy. He's an honest, decent man filled with integrity. I can tell this. These guys are shocked when they meet him how charming he is in person. What do you think he is? You think he kills babies? What do you think of these people? That's pretty close. I mean, they really, when these guys who live in their liberal cocoons start thinking of conservatives, they buy their own stupid PR. Racist, mean-spirited, extremist, whatever. Then they meet these guys, and they're floored. They can't believe he was nice to me. He was charming. You know what? He can actually communicate. He's really good one-on-one. I'm constantly amazed that this happens. These are thought to be, we're told these are the smart guys. They understand all these. They're continually shocked. Imagine what they must think going in. That's a problem. Back after this.